So this has been a highly requested video, so we are going to be discussing who exactly should Barcelona be aiming for if they do have the capacity to do so in the summer. Should it be Zubimendi or Enzo Fernández? Now these are two players that the world does admire. We talk about Enzo Fernández, right? He was one of the top players in the World Cup, and a high-level central defensive midfielder is needed. The same thing with Zubimendi. Everybody loves watching Zubimendi just boss the midfield in La Liga. And we know Xavi's main idea right now within the formation and the system is that he has a double pivot in a 3-2-2-3 system. So he has cracked it. He knows exactly what he does want to do. When we talk about the 3-2-2-3 system, it is Frenkie de Jong in that double pivot, but who is going to be the player next to Frenkie de Jong? Which is why many are talking about Zubimendi or Enzo Fernández, because 1 year later around this time, we are either going to be seeing Sergio Busquets left with only 5 months left in his contract or just be out completely, because we do not know whether Sergio Busquets is going to be extending for 1 more year or not. So a discussion like this is very necessary. And here's how we're going to be organizing this video. We're going to be talking about the player profile of Enzo Fernández and Zubimendi, then talk about their differences, then talk about the cost and who would be the better suitor for FC Barcelona. And let's first talk about Enzo Fernández and his profile type. So he has been playing in a 4-2-3-1 system like 55% of the time with Benfica, and he has been playing as a left defensive midfielder. Already we can see that he can greatly slot next to Frenkie de Jong in that double pivot within Xavi's system. And this is also a central defensive midfielder that does have 5 assists and 1 goal so far in the league. So he has more goal contributions than any other central defensive midfielder in FC Barcelona. He's a very reliant passer with a total of 89.6% of those passes being completed, and he's a very progressive passer. He's also a great ball carrier and does carry the ball around 3.4 times per 90 minutes. And we have seen that with Argentina. This guy is a monster when he does have the ball and carries the ball into the final third. He truly does enjoy it. And then when we speak about the passes to the final third per 90, he does distribute a total of 13.29 passes to the final third per 90. So attacking wise, he is amazing. And then you look at the goal that he scored against Mexico, he's also a great shot taker. Can you imagine having a shot taker like that at FC Barcelona with Frenkie de Jong? And so now let's look at the profile type of Zubimendi, because now this is where things get very different, because when we talk about Zubimendi, he does play as a lone pivot in a 3-man midfield with Real Sociedad. We have just seen this player about 24 to 48 hours ago, and he was one of the best players going up against FC Barcelona. Like, there's a reason why he has won the most tackles in that game. That is because defensively he is amazing, and this is going to show us already just the direction that we are going to go to when it comes to describing his profile. Right now, as a central defensive midfielder, he has 1 goal and 2 assists, which is not bad, right? For a player who does not really do much in the attack, this is not bad. He is in the 93 percentile in the aerial duels within the top 5 leagues, which is very good. That basically means that Zubimendi is better than 93% of the players playing in the top 5 leagues when it comes to aerial duels. He's also great at blocking shots, intercepting the ball. He welcomes 1v1s, very similar to like Ronald Araujo. You can see that he's having a lot of fun every time he tries to take the ball away from one of the players. He enjoys that physical battle. And so that would also be monumental for Xavi's FC Barcelona. And it would be a great balance on what he does compared to what Frenkie does. Now let's go into the differences, because this is where things get very interesting. Xavi Hernandez is going to have to make a choice, is to either have a player that's very good in the attack or very good in defense. Because when we describe Zubimendi and Enzo Fernández, they're nothing alike. We can clearly see that Enzo Fernández is a extreme version of what Frenkie de Jong could do in the attack. Zubimendi is also a extreme version of what Frenkie de Jong could do in defense. This is also showing us that Frenkie de Jong is a perfect mix of both of what Zubimendi does carry and also Enzo Fernández. And then you also add in Frenkie being great as a ball holder. He is a complete midfield, which is why many do call Frenkie de Jong a very special player. But going back to Enzo Fernández does beat Frenkie de Jong in successful attacking actions per 90. Enzo does have a total of 2.7 per 90. Frenkie de Jong carries 2.68 per 90. And then you have Zubimendi, who goes all the way down to 0.79 successful attacking actions per 90. Let's have some context, right? Because Frenkie de Jong has been playing as a central midfielder for Barcelona like 85% of the time. So for Enzo Fernández to continue to beat Frenkie de Jong in this aspect of the game, even as a central defensive midfielder, and we have seen Frenkie in higher positions, it's just spectacular coming from Enzo. Now, when it comes to successful defensive actions per 90, of course, we have Zubimendi on top of Enzo Fernández. Zubimendi does have 8.99, Enzo has 8.13, and then Frenkie de Jong goes all the way to the bottom with a total of 7.39. So clearly, players like Enzo Fernández and Zubimendi have different strengths. They have great strengths strengths, but they're very different. And then if we look at the heat map of what Enzo has been doing, and also with Zubimendi throughout the league and where they have been playing the most, Enzo Fernández is simply just much more effective on the opposition's half. With Zubimendi, he rarely does meet up with his players in the opposition's half. Like, Enzo Fernández is clear when it comes to what can he do in the attack. Look at all that red. But I would also say that Zubimendi looks much happier defending his own box, because you can see that he does sometimes arrive in his own box while Enzo is just not present at all. So going back to what I said, and I want this to be like the main theme of this video, these are two very different central defensive midfielders. So now let's ask the question, what type of profile does Xavi need in that double pivot that we do have at Barcelona now? And let me tell you, Xavi Hernandez has never spoken about how he is looking for a very defensive central defensive midfielder. He has never said that. Barcelona is simply just not looking for a Vidal type of player or a Gattuso type of player. What Xavi has said though is that he wants his team to be a goal scoring machine, meaning he wants all of his players to provide assists, to score goals. Why do you think Xavi Hernandez has constantly asked his midfielders like Frankie, Gavi, and Pedri to be more of a protagonist in the final third? He wants Pedri to reach 10 goals. He wants Gavi to provide more assists. He wants Frankie to also take long shots, because Xavi believes that they have the capability to do so. He has also asked Busquets to take more shots. Like, why do you think Busquets has been taking way more shots than ever before in this season, even though he is getting older? The same thing for Kessie. We know that Kessie can play perfectly as a left defensive midfielder or as a right defensive midfielder, but Xavi Hernandez says, I see the offensive qualities in you and I want you to bring that into the final third, and so I want you to play as a central midfielder. So that is basically all that Xavi does want, and many sources have also claimed the exact same thing. And so we look at Enzo Fernandez's profile. These are going to be Opta stats. He's just so much more superior in the attack than many of the midfielders that Barcelona do have right now. Look at the passes attempted, look at the pass completion rates, look at the progressive passes, the non-penalty goals, the shots total. Everything is extremely high. This is a world-class central defensive midfielder. And then you bring in Frankie's stats, and can you just imagine that, right? Can you imagine a duo between Frankie and Enzo? It would bring so much inspiration, I would say, a lot of fluidity in the midfield, and a lot of fire, a lot of goals. You may say, but Kevin, I think that having Frankie and Enzo Fernández right next to each other, they're just too much alike. But we also have to remember that Xavi's main goal with Barcelona is to be much more aggressive as a collective. Like, why do you think this team has really improved in intensity, in focus, in pressuring, in defending, in minimizing lanes for the opposition? Like, why do you think also Christensen has been doing so well? Because remember, back when he was at Chelsea, he was known as a player that is just great technically and that physically he cannot do much more. But at Barcelona, he is a physical monster. He knows how to take away the ball, he knows how to pass the ball, and the same thing is going to apply when Enzo does arrive. Even though Enzo doesn't have the great defensive capabilities that Zubimendi does carry, Enzo will learn. And you combine that with his attacking qualities, you have a world-class central defensive midfielder. And so now let's move on towards the cost of these two players, because this is where things do get difficult. The cost for Enzo is going to be at the very least, and this is, if you're lucky, this is going to be considered as like a cut price deal, 95 million euros, if not more. If Benfica believe that he's worth 120, then they do have a right to say that. As for Zubimendi, he will cost 60 million euros, which will be much more attainable for FC Barcelona. But even at 60 million euros, that is a lot for this club. Now, it's strange to hear this and to talk about who we should pick, because right now Barcelona is currently struggling to register Gavi in the league. And so you guys might say, we can't even afford none of these players. Like, why even talk about these two players? But don't get it confused. Remember, La Liga is putting a limit on FC Barcelona. Let's just say, for example, and I want you guys to understand just the predicament that Barcelona is in. Let's just say you get a check from your work that is $200. Can you imagine your work, right? Your company telling you, okay, we're giving you a check of $200, but you can only spend $10 for the week. You know how pissed off you would be if you're only able to spend $10 out of that $200 check that you have worked for. So that is basically the situation, and the best way I could explain what's currently going on with La Liga and FC Barcelona is La Liga saying, hey, we understand that this is your money, we understand that you have made your own money, but we do have control over it, and we have a say on how much you could spend. Even though you may have like 900 million euros in your account, I don't care, you can only spend about 10 million euros from that account. But I do have strong belief in Joan Laporta and Mateo Lemán on what they could do. We know that they have levers that they could pull that will be economically safe. I know that this does get questioned a lot. We also do have another report coming from a couple of sources claiming that Barcelona are considering to sell Barca TV as it is currently generating a lot of losses. This would give Barcelona a very big income in the summer. So there are things being pulled and being thought of behind the scenes. If we want to replace Sergio Busquets, I have always said that it's going to have to come through a very big time high level player. Now, am I also saying that we're going to be replacing Busquets 100%? I don't think so. I don't think that anybody is ever going to replace what Busquets has done for FC Barcelona and what he could do. But if we can just cover 90% or 80% of what Busquets has done for FC Barcelona and who he is, that would be worth it. When it comes to Enzo, going back to this player again, this player has already showed that he can deliver in big stages, that he can be consistent in the league with Benfica. And I'm not saying that Zubimendi is bad, it's just that his profile does match what Barcelona does want. And also looking at how much we need a central defensive midfielder and where we want to go, putting on a big investment for Enzo Fernández is ideal. Now, if you were to ask me, should we spend 100 million euros on a winger? No, because we have Dembele, we have Ansu, we have Ferran, we have Rafinha. If you were to ask me, should we spend 110 million euros on a center back? No, because we have Araujo, we have Christensen, we have Jules Koundé. Or would I say that we should spend 100 million euros on a central midfielder? No, again, because we have Frankie, Pedri, Gavi, Pablo Torre, and much more. But when it comes to a central defensive midfielder and being next to Frankie de Jong, when we do have that 3-2-2-3 system, yes, I do think that it is mandatory, because I can't really give you no name for a position like the central defensive midfield position. So lastly, I do want to end it with this. According to Mundo Deportivo, the Portuguese source claims that Barcelona are in the race to sign Enzo Fernández, but the reality is that the club's economy would not allow such a massive transfer right now. So again, like I've said, things could be pulled in the summer. We're gonna have to wait until that, but right now, just Barcelona, they're not capable right now. Like, don't expect Barcelona to sign any type of central defensive midfielder in the January transfer window. We're gonna have to wait and see if Barcelona can be competitive, and to see in the end if Enzo even wants to come to Barcelona after a 1-year spell with Benfica. So I hope you guys did enjoy this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.